What's going on, everybody? It's Jeff here. Welcome back to the channel. AMC closing over $40. I said in the video I made yesterday, look to get that retest at resistance levels between $43 and $44, which we did. GameStop reached over $250 this morning as well. Both of these stocks were running off of sentiment from another stock in the same sector that ran really hard after hours. However, this morning, that stock completely tanked. We're going to go over everything. Also, the volume did die out a little bit after we retested that $44 level of resistance. The entire market began to back off and just slow down a little bit as the FOMC was coming to an end and Jerome Powell was speaking. I'm going to give you a brief update on what he said and how the market took it. So let's get right into it. First off, it is about time the Federal Reserve to start withdrawing its emergency support for the economy. So for the last umpteen months, the Federal Reserve has been buying $120 billion of treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities. And they've talked about the tapering for many months now. They were waiting for the labor market to get better. They were waiting for inflation to slow down. They were waiting for the economy to recover. They were always waiting. And inflation is just still at the point to where Jerome Powell believes it is going to still be transitory, should fade to about 3.5% next year and then 2% in the year following. It is still at elevated levels. And that does put pressure on especially families that are at the same income level, having to provide or spend more on food and transportation and so forth. So they are going to start officially their asset tapering. It is only going to be, I think, about $15 billion less. They're starting it now, and they do expect it to end at the same time frame they gave in the middle of next year. Okay, interest rates are still going to remain at almost near zero. Jerome Powell also did state this specifically, that he does not want to shake the markets. If you've been investing in the market for a long time, you can really have appreciation for Jerome Powell and seeing that he actually does want to keep the markets elevated. Okay, somebody at his level can completely crash the market at any single time with anything he decides to do. And I know you've seen some pullbacks and so forth. However, if you zoom out a little bit and you look at the market over the past year, it has just continued to go up and up and up. So that remains well. We take a look at the SPY levels. As soon as he was done speaking, you can see right here, 2 o'clock minutes released. Got a little choppy. They saw interest rates were going to remain the same and asset tapering was going to be minimal. I mean, it's 120 billion. They're only cutting out 15 billion. All right, that is just under 10%. So it's very minimal. Once he spoke, didn't say anything to shake the markets. It completely ripped right out of the gate, moving higher. Now, if you look at AMC today, beautiful, right out of the gate. After it's a little bit of a gap up last night, it did have some good power or after hours last night as well. Retested that same level of resistance. If we jump over here to the daily chart, use these as guidelines for where you can expect this stock to move. It's always good to know, like I said, where you can see your next resistance levels, where your next support levels are, because you never want to be surprised. And obviously, this is technical analysis, all right, and things, news trumps technical analysis and so forth. But as you can see right here, to a T, it bounced off that level. Look for a retest, and it is strong going into earnings. I hope you watched the video I made yesterday talking about Avis car rental and how it absolutely shocked expectations. And they are a little bit similar in the fact that they were both heavily beaten down due to COVID. So keep that in mind. I will talk about the stock very briefly that yesterday had ripped up after hours. They were going to do $1 billion of a share buyback. However, a couple things did not last with this stock out of the gate. As you can see, it sold off immediately as it opened and just continued all day long. The first thing is that they're going to redefine their business plans, meaning what is going on right now is not working for them. They don't really have detailed plans yet. It's just an announcement. Listen, what's been going on with us is not working, and we have a plan to change it. Also, the fact that it was a low cap stock, just seeing that news yesterday completely ran these. And like I said, we're always looking for an after hour mover. And when traders heard this news, it got passed all around the internet, just continued to rip up. And if you look at all the other stocks in the same sector as BBBY, you look at COS, EXPR, I mean, I think even Wish was attached to it, but the main ones, AMC right here, and then you also look at GameStop as well. The same things begin to happen. And they all run off different levels of variance, different volumes, as well as different percentage changes. But look at GameStop finally getting back to a solid level, 215 all the way up to that 250. 55. It went parabolic. Remember, we've talked about this before. As soon as the same speed that it goes up, it is going to come back down. But like I also said, the entire market got a little bit of stagnation because of the speaking that was happening. So keep that in mind going forward. And it was nice to see both AMC, especially AMC, because I know that's our baby, but AMC and GameStop continue its move higher, even though the leader, okay, that had sparked this momentum continuously sold off. Also, if you were bag holding the stock for a long period of time, this was your chance to be able to either exit green or at least minimize some of those losses, because it did have a monstrous move to the upside and still up, I think, 15%. For the day going total. But keep this in mind for AMC when it comes to their earnings. It is set to report in just a few days, and it is strong going into it, as well as, like I said in my last video as well, this sparked a little bit of interest when it comes to the quote unquote, I hate to say it, but it comes to the meme sector and the meme stocks, because they haven't had a run in quite some time. And just like I always mention this, everything moves in cycles. And while, low float IPOs, might have been hot for a while, the EV sector was insanely hot if you're going back to January and February. All right, and everything begins to, float around. You got penny stocks that get hot. Always pay attention to what gets hot. And once the momentum gets back into the meme stock, because everybody tries to be first when it comes to a new sector, you can expect this to explode. The volume was good coming into it today as well. A lot on the buy side. Looked a little bit as the options chain, and it was bullish. I'm not going to go over it because I know I always go over it, but it was bullish. More calls to put on the put side. So that's another good news for us. And let's try to keep this trend continuing, especially that we do have the green light with the markets overall. As you can see, new all-time highs for the SPY. Once it broke above this little downtrend right here, it just continuing to move to the upside. Look, over the next few months, you're going to have a couple issues. I'm going to talk about this very briefly for all of you guys that want to get into your longs. You're going to have a couple issues with the supply chains. Okay, a couple of these companies are going to have to cut some of their guidance. You already said Apple had cut saying their production on their iPhones, just not being able to get parts and so forth. You are going to see a little bit of that. However, investors are still very, very bullish on the market for the near term, even though we haven't gotten to that correction territory. So keep that into your longs. One last thing I will point out to everybody, this was something that I mentioned in the group. You have Twilio that had entered the gap. I alerted this at $306 once it got over into the gap. Some guys got some calls. They're up about 70% today, which was monstrous. And lastly, the call of the day that we had was this stock right here, IRTC, gapped up, I believe, about almost $30 once it came out of the gate. I said, look for it to get above that $102 mark, which right here, the reason why you can see above the 102 is that was that previous resistance pre-market. Let it get above that and take it all the way up. This was a $25 move higher. So when I say market makers are letting some of these stocks run, no, it's not every stock. But when momentum gets into this, especially in this one, it was very, very thin pre-market, and it was up so much that the shorts, because of the news, that the shorts are going to look for any way to get out of it very, very quickly. And it maintained these levels for pretty much the entire day. A high of 127. It opened at, as you can see right here, about 100, 102, and it closed at 122. This one was the play of the day. I alerted this at 9 o'clock. If you're interested in checking out our pre-market plays, first link in the description. Come check it out. We'd love to have you. That's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.